Welcome, everybody. We are officially on start time. And just to let people drop in, we see that the numbers are just running away. We're gathering in this room, and we'll let you start by, in your own time, taking part of the welcoming and check-in question. And write your answer in the chat.
As people arrive, giving them a few minutes.
Yeah. Hi, Lotta.
Hi, Ola.
Beautiful to see you all arriving. Some familiar faces, some new for me faces.
And faces from all over the world. Fantastic.
Yeah, and please actually share with us where you're joining from, if you want. And do you want to ask the question as well?
Well, what is my heart whispering to me right now? Honestly, I'm really nervous, so I can't almost hear my heart speak. But if I try to tune it down, it would say to me that it's going to be all right, and it's all right to be nervous. I'm holding you warmly, Lotta, and so is everyone else. The kind faces from all of you participants, wishing so much goodwill to all of us here. That's what my heart is whispering to me at this moment. What about you, Ola?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's I have to tap in to hear. Yeah, my heart was whispering gratitude. This is, I feel gratitude for connecting from across the globe with you all here. I'm hopping out of my baby bubble with my 3-week-old at home. And so I feel gratitude for joining with others and with you who are not in that particular bubble. Yeah, so connecting our bubbles.
Should we start?
Let's start. Yeah, absolutely.
So warmly welcome to today's gathering. We have a group of fantastic, lovely guests with us today. And what unites them, connects them, is that all of them are trained and certified mindful self-compassion trainers. They have a passion for self-compassion, and they all work to support others to develop this inner resource that we have of holding ourselves warmly when we need it the most. I stumbled into self-compassion when I enrolled into an 8-week mindful self-compassion program, thinking that it was mindfulness that I was going to learn. And I did, but there was also something else, and that was very unexpected. And that was self-compassion, about training myself to tap into this inner resource, about being nice and kind and warm and holding yourself. I didn't quite get it after 8 weeks. I'm a really slow learner. So I decided to become a teacher. And I'm so happy that today, one of our guests is actually my teacher, Chris Germer. Warmly welcome, Chris. So Chris is the co-creator of this 8-week program of mindful self-compassion together with Kristin Neuf. He's also the co-founder of the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion together with Kristin Neuf. He's a clinical psychiatrist, and he's also a lecturer at Harvard part-time. But what he mostly does is supporting the center and supporting teachers and others to spread the word and the possibilities of developing self-compassion. And he also just recently turned 70. So big congratulations to you, Chris.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us. We also have Susan, Dr. Susan Gitau is a trained and certified mindful self-compassion teacher from Kenya. And you're also a counseling psychologist and helping empower vulnerable people, families, and communities through counseling, mindful self-compassion, and coaching. We're going to be hearing from you as well today, sharing your experiences and your heart. So thank you for being here.
And then we have Galia, who is also a certified mindful self-compassion teacher from Israel. She's actually pioneering mindful self-compassion in Israel. And one of the many things that she's done is create a bilingual Arab-Jewish course in mindful self-compassion. She's also the program director for the Self-Compassion in Psychotherapy certificate program. Welcome to this gathering.
And just to continue spreading the geographic representation, we have Ha joining us from Vietnam. You're a trained mindful self-compassion teacher in Vietnam, and you've co-founded and are the director of Authentic Live and Learn in Vietnam, which is a network of trainers and learners aspiring to promote happiness and compassion throughout the country. And you're also on the advisory board of the Global Compassion Coalition, which to me sounds beautiful. And I'm intrigued to hear you share perhaps about that or whatever it is that you want to share with us all today. And I just want to, our final
guest is Miriam Lute. And she's also a certified mindful self-compassion teacher, but she's also a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher, yoga teacher, and something called Awake in the Wild teacher for mindfulness practice in nature. Sounds really, really good. And she was also spearheading the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion's international work or global engagement. So with that, we hand it over to...
I just want to mention the rest in the room as well, because we have a beautiful community now in the room together with all of our contributors today. And thank you for sharing with us where you're joining from Rwanda, from Germany, from all over the world. So I encourage you to put on gallery view as well from time to time, just to see each other's beautiful faces. And please do continue to share in the chat things that pop up for you. Yeah, there's more than 4 pages of scrolling our different screens here. So we're almost 200 people in the room. So I just want to bring us all together as well.
Thanks a lot for doing that.
To be in presence with each other. So with that, over to our wonderful guests.
Shall I begin?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So many thanks for inviting me, Lotta and Ola, Johan, and the team of IDG, and also for hosting this gathering. I'm just so happy to be here also with wonderful teachers from around the world, and especially with you all from around the world. And really appreciate that you're spending an hour and a half of your precious time to explore the inner resource of self-compassion to help create a more sustainable world. I think everyone in this gathering understands how outer development really depends on inner development. In the United States, we recently celebrated Martin Luther King Day, and Dr. King said, "Be the peace you wish to see in this world." And Mahatma Gandhi also wrote, "We mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world can be found in the world of the body. If we can change ourselves, the tendencies of the world would also change when we don't need to wait to see what others do." But the million-dollar question is, how do we change ourselves? So, as anyone who has made a New Year's resolution knows, self-improvement plans are notoriously difficult to bring to life. Research shows that 25% of us who make a New Year's resolution abandon it in the first week, and 60 to 80% of us drop our resolution by the end of the month, which happens to be like now, January 24th. Only 9% of us actually stick with it. But what I appreciate about the IDG model is the focus on learnable skills. And self-compassion is a learnable skill that also makes it much easier to learn other skills. And the reason for this is that self-compassionate people motivate themselves with kindness and with self-acceptance rather than with shame and self-criticism. The psychologist Carl Rogers said, "The curious paradox is when I accept myself as I am, change comes about almost unnoticed." So if we want to eat healthier and exercise more, or if we want to cultivate beneficial inner qualities for a sustainable world, it probably helps to learn self-compassion first. It's a foundation for all kinds of change. Self-compassion also appears to be an underlying factor in human health, mental health, physical health, and well-being. There are now over 5,000 articles in the psychological literature on self-compassion. And they consistently show that self-compassion enhances well-being. And this is across many different measures. Actually, the list is endless, seemingly endless. People who are self-compassionate have higher life satisfaction, more happiness, gratitude, self-confidence, optimism, wisdom, curiosity, creativity, autonomy, relatedness, higher emotional intelligence, and so forth. And they also have less distress, less anxiety, depression, stress, less perfectionism, less self-criticism, less shame, less rumination. And interestingly, self-compassion is also associated with more satisfying relationships. And a very recent study showed that self-compassion also increases tolerance for people who appear to be unlike ourselves, which is definitely important for a sustainable world. In other words, if we only have the time and energy to learn one inner quality that will lead to many other good qualities, self-compassion is a good candidate. If to use an accounting term, learning self-compassion has an excellent cost-benefit ratio. But there are certain obstacles to learning self-compassion. One of the main obstacles is the term itself. When people hear self-compassion, they often cringe because they think, when they hear self, they think of selfishness or narcissism. And when they think of compassion, they think of weakness. But the research shows quite the opposite, actually. People who are self-compassionate, who learn self-compassion, they actually become more compassionate toward other people. And self-compassion is not a weakness. It's actually a powerful inner resource for coping. People who are high in self-compassion, they deal way better with trauma and stress. Even self-compassion even helps to alleviate early childhood trauma. It's a powerful internal resource. But it's also important to understand that self-compassion is actually a very humble enterprise. You know, when we practice self-compassion, we're just including ourselves in the circle of compassion. Most of us, actually 78% of us, are more compassionate toward others than we are to ourselves. Informal definition of self-compassion is when we suffer, treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding as we would treat a good friend. Anyhow, if we can believe the research, excluding ourselves from the circle of compassion, in other words, only thinking that kindness to ourselves is a sin and kindness toward others is a virtue. If we have this idea in our minds, if we exclude ourselves, we're really making ourselves our lives unnecessarily difficult. Self-compassion is just inner compassion, including ourselves. But there's a formal definition for self-compassion, which was created by Kristin Neff back in 2003. And there are three components. The first is mindfulness versus over-identification or self-absorption. The second is common humanity versus a sense of isolation. And the third component is self-kindness versus self-criticism. In order to be self-compassionate, we need all three components. They overlap, they go together. And when we learn self-compassion, such as in the Mindful Self-Compassion program, we are actually learning all three components in tandem. The thing is that when people think about self-compassion, they often think, well, it's the same as mindfulness. It isn't actually the same. It includes mindfulness. Some people think, well, it's self-kindness. It's just being warm. Well, it includes warmth, but it's not only warmth. There's another element in there which I find brilliant. Then I think it's also part of Kristin Neff's brilliance that she included it in the definition. And that is that self-compassion also includes the component of common humanity, okay? And so to be truly self-compassionate, we need to see that our suffering is part of the human experience. And we need to know while we're suffering that we are not alone. This is central to self-compassion. Some of the most precious things in life, if you think about it, the things that are most important to us are not tangible, you know, like, I don't know, like love, like compassion, like peace, right? We can't touch them, but we definitely know when we feel them. And it's the same with common humanity. We can't touch the invisible threads that hold us together, but connection makes all the difference in our lives. The opposite of common humanity, isolation, also can have a profound effect on our lives. Research actually shows that isolation is a major risk factor for premature death, as high a risk factor as smoking and obesity. This is the importance of common humanity is and not feeling isolated. Question, how do we cultivate a sense of common humanity? So there are really two ways. One way is to remind ourselves of our common humanity, and that is to continually remind ourselves that when we're suffering, we're not alone, that suffering is a part of life, and that others would feel just the same as we do if they were in the same situation. Not everybody, but some other people. So when Kristin Neff came up with the concept of common humanity, she actually wanted to use Thich Nhat Hanh's term interbeing. But she thought at the time that people were not ready for that term. But I particularly like the concept of interbeing, and so does Kristin to this day, because it reminds us how inextricably related, we are not only to human beings, but also to nature. So if you think about it, we come from nature, we return to nature. All the matter in our bodies can also be found in nature. And also the current climate catastrophe that we're in is just showing humanity what happens when we forget that we are a part of nature. So we need to remember. We need remembering common humanity or interbeing frees us from this trance of separateness, this delusion of separateness, this idea that we are somehow not a part of society or we're not a part of nature. This is us, like we're all limbs on the same body. We don't harm another limb, right? So remembering common humanity separates, alleviates this trance of separateness that leads to so much suffering in the world. But there's another way of cultivating common humanity that is more difficult than remembering, and also deeper, and that is opening to pain. So the poet Naomi Shihab Nye, a Palestinian poet, wrote, "Before you know kindness as the deepest thing, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must catch it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you can see the size of the cloth." So opening to pain and sorrow in our own personal lives is actually a skill that most of us would rather not learn, right? This is because we don't think that we have the capacity to deal with it. But that's a wrong assumption. Since the beginning of time, human beings have handled unimaginable suffering with an innate resource. How have human beings handled so much suffering since we've been on this earth? And the answer is with compassion. Compassion is something really special. Compassion is love plus suffering. It's a mixture of love and suffering, but it's mostly love, right? As a Burmese monk said, when the tears of sorrow meet the sunshine of loving kindness, the rainbow of compassion arises. Compassion is a positive emotion. Compassion, just like all positive emotions, it uplifts us, it energizes us. And when we wrap our suffering in a blanket of compassion, suffering is transformed into something different. Suffering changes when we meet it with compassion. It's like alchemy. And the same thing happens with self-compassion. When we suffer and when we open our hearts to ourselves in the midst of suffering with kindness and understanding, when we can remember to be kind and understanding with ourselves, suffering becomes workable. And there is so much suffering in this world, really way too much suffering to bear, right? However, when we first open to our experience of this suffering with compassion, we actually get strength and vitality and energy in order to meet that suffering. So self-compassion is super important in order to have a sustainable world, and it can be learned. So I'm especially grateful to this IDG gathering for focusing on self-compassion as an inner skill, because it will definitely support the future of this planet. So now I'd like to pass the baton to Miriam and to our other beloved self-compassion teachers who will show us how this works all around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for painting that picture so broadly as you can do as a co-founder next to Kristin. Yeah, and I'll just briefly speak to you now in my role at CMSD as Global Engagement Coordinator. And with that naming, there's so many, regarding, if you call it, international efforts, because it is an international organization and it's being trained and delivered as a training in about more than 40 countries right now. About 100,000 people have been trained, and the teachings exist in more than 20 languages. And we usually co-teach in a tandem, which makes it very special and very rewarding also. And that's why this beauty of of those who are here right now as MSc teachers with us shows a bit of that the co-teaching among between the time zones, between the cultures, between the languages is it's possible in these times, and I find it's needed, and brings a lot of rewards and opportunities to grow and to learn from each other. And with that, really naming, like in the audience, there's so many of you teaching mindful self-compassion, but also other teachings, obviously, just to name all these good intentions that are here present right now, plus all the skills that you bring in, because you speak, at least we can communicate in English, but you have your own language and your time zone, culture, and so on. So a lot of, there's like a melting pot and a lot of possibility in that. And with that, as Chris was pointing already to loneliness, we live in times which is so obvious of nested crisis, where they are multiple, they are cascading and they are intertwined, and there's climate crisis, but there's also all the issues around oppression and domination, war, trauma, pandemic, but they're all nested. It's not just one thing, but they all have a story, and we are interwoven in that. So even if we train this skill of self-compassion, it is embedded in the bigger system. So this, like the little bridge I want to build here to the IDGs too. We had made a little effort to look at the health benefits, mental well-being benefits that Chris has mentioned, which are plenty, as you have heard, how they fit into the 5 domains of the 23 skills, feeding into them. And they do that very beautifully, from being to acting, because being, from acting from a being mode is a different thing than simply acting. And also tapping into the resources of collaboration and relation, because we need each other. These crises cannot be held just on these shoulders. That would be completely overwhelming. And that's where we are not in the zone of tolerance that allows us to learn, to be creative, to see new doors, opportunities. It's a lot about learning and collaboration from each other, between each other. That's like the systemic view, which I really would like to point to here. Also under the second pillar, Chris, that you have mentioned. Not so mindfulness, self-kindness, kind of focusing on ourselves and our emotions, common humanity, broadening the picture. So the invisible, the relation to myself, of course, it starts to others, and the planet, or if you call it life, when you call it life or nature outside planet Earth, how we are embedded, how we sense that, and also how we're able to hold our emotions of grief, grief, also of joy. And from these emotions, they set us into motion. They can bring us to action when we can be with them and hold them. That cannot be done alone. So it's a lot about togetherness, and that's why this decade of local action and people action of the in the SDGs, what we kind of look at here now, it needs all of us. It needs everybody, and that's so important right now to bring awareness to that, to hold what the moment of time we are in. With that, so connectedness between self, others, and planet Earth versus the separation that we all suffer differently as we are in different parts of the world. With that, I would like first to point, because 3 teachers are in here now, so many more of you are here and that who could share, and that brings a lot of joy to me to see you and to remember and know when we all have met. Hopefully we'll meet more often, to open up that array of colors and of diversity that also CMSC tries to stand for, to build in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging into all training efforts. And that's a learning path, and that can only be done if we do it together. because it cannot just come from one place. It needs being informed and open, being open to collaboration and learning. It's deep learning, also about our worldviews, not taking for granted how we see the world. So, Susan, I would like to invite you in as first sharer of your experiences teaching mindful self-compassion.
Yeah, I'm saying thank you, Miriam. I feel humbled to be in the presence also of my great teachers. Great teacher, great teacher. When I see Chris Gama here, my first teacher in MSc, then Galia, and then Miriam, who co-teaches with me, and helps me a lot to start classes in Africa. I really appreciate. And then meeting Lotta, who understands a bit of my local language, Swahili, and she's also one of the founding members of the IDG program that we wish to interface with MSc. I feel this is the moment. For me, when I joined MSc class with Chris Gama in 2018, I was almost giving up with counseling because I'm a practitioner in Africa. I was feeling I'm always burning out. But when he came to Kenya, I realized that I don't have that self-compassion. And I realized through the learnings that sometimes having some fierce self-compassion is important for self-preservation, self-protection, and loving me. Because in Africa, there is a tendency of therapists or counselors thinking that others always come before you. And that can create high dependency, not two-way, but one-way. They depend on you clients and you keep giving and giving until you have nothing left for yourself. So I really appreciate that I'm still alive and doing a lot of private practice alongside teaching. MSc has been very instrumental because I work with teenage mothers in my country and where I live as the head of counselors in one of the largest counties in Kenya. I have over 200 teen mothers, and I take in small groups of 25, 25, 25, and I take them through skills training. And I cannot tell you how magical this has been, bringing in MSc practice. We just practice all the principles, the loving kindness phrases. And I have seen these girls, some have gone back to school and finished high school and primary school. Some have come to love themselves because they became mothers through sexual violence. And when we talk about that self-acceptance without running away from their pain, mindfulness has been very instrumental. Instead of denying I was raped, instead of denying I was made that young mother because I went looking for money to feed for my family, they accept that this has happened. So there's nothing like running away from pain, the thoughts that come to their mind. There's nothing like saying somebody else takes the blame. And so I see MSc working very well in dealing with trauma for these teen mothers. I have also seen them love one another, because the minute I set up a new group, you can find there is negative energy amongst them. But the more we continue practicing MSc, I find that they start loving one another. The interactions change. The relationships between them changes. Some of them come in with their babies also. And initially, if they came in, they would look dirty, they would look unkept. But with time, they want to be clean, they want to be neat. They are laughing, they are smiling, they are glowing. And all I go sit with them is just pick a little bit of MSc practices, whether it is one concocted in the African way. Sometimes we like the loving kindness, gestures. We are also very okay, Africans, putting our hands here. And sometimes we sing. And we are notoriously religious, allow me to let you know. And when we are like want to say it is okay for me to be with my pain, we have a very beautiful song we sing. Chako tumaini sina, ila damu yake Yesu, sina wema wa kutosha, dhambi zangu kuziosha. So they accept that everything has happened to them. They did not go for it. Yes, it happened, but that is not where they need to stay. And as I wind up, because we have many teachers here, we need to have more time to share. I look at IDGs and I'm thinking in Africa as a whole. I will begin with my teen mothers, because I have to make them internalize the goals they want for their lives. And I have realized MSc is one beautiful way of going inward, because one of the biggest problems I want to tell the world, because the whole world is represented here, that we have in Africa, we don't easily believe in ourselves. It's like we are always waiting for the rest of the world to rescue Africa. And so for me, when I think about the IDGs interface with MSc, I see a continent that will not be a burden to the rest of the world. And I can't wait to get partners come on board. I can't wait to see a lot of research done in this area, because if Africa pains, the rest of the world pains. If Africa is impoverished, the rest of the world will never move. We will always be following you. And so I thank you very much, all the stakeholders in these blessings. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Susan. Yeah,
Thank you,
see,
Miriam.
there are a lot of comments in the chat just pointing to the generosity of sharings and showing that you receive what Susan is sharing, just brief words from deep experience. Thank you, Susan. Dear Galia, you're invited in to open up furthermore into on this planet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, so many faces. This is such a beautiful mosaic of people. How are you all over there, everywhere in the world? Yay. Yeah, I see thumbs up. This is beautiful. Some of you are in cold countries. I believe I think Barbara was walking in the snow, if I saw correctly. I don't know her, but the snow looked beautiful. And some of you are in warm countries. So this is so great seeing you all and being here with you. I really feel privileged. I come from a tiny, tiny country. It's just a dot in the globe, on the globe, but making a lot of noise. Yeah, you hear about it a lot in the news. Israel is like that. And like many other parts in the world, this is a conflict zone. And of course, we can say the conflict is outside, but of course, it's always a reflection of the inside, right? So I am grateful for seeing you all, being here with you, being in the presence of my teacher and my mentor, Chris Goeman, who dreamt with Christine F. this beautiful program. And as Miriam said before, brought it from being to doing and really created the Mindful Self-Compassion program. And this has made an amazing change in my own personal life, as I was at that time in kind of suffering, as we are all experiencing sometimes, don't we? You can just nod if you agree. Yeah, sometimes we are just suffering from something. It can be the tiniest thing, as it can be like a huge thing, and it can be on a global, right? We can see what's happening to nature, and we can see what's happening in our own land. And when I finished learning this teacher training, I told one of my colleagues that my dream is to bring it to Israel and just bring the practice of compassion over here, because there's such a trauma that needs healing, like a collective trauma, personal trauma, ancestral trauma. And bringing compassion and self-compassion to it was my dream. So it took some time, as things do sometimes. I needed to practice some more. And then after a few years, I joined forces with one of my colleagues that is a Christian Arab from Nazareth. And together we created Planting Seeds of Compassion, which is a program for Arabs and Jews in Hebrew and in Arabic, mindful self-compassion course. So this is a tiny, tiny move in the world. You know, it's just a circle of women coming from Palestine and Israel, sitting together, practicing compassion and learning these practices. So I believe that each and every one of you is doing something like this in the world. Even being mindful of what you're doing during a day is already an act of compassion to the world and to yourself. So there's nothing heroic in that. It's just a simple act of being together, trying to heal this trauma. And I feel that this investigation, even to translate, you know, we are here from all over the world. So when we talk about compassion in different languages, we can translate it in so many ways. So the investigation that went with me and Nadia is her name, just to find out what is the right term, you know, for compassion. What would be the right word in Arabic? So because there are a few. What is closest to our heart? What speaks to us in our mother and father tongue language? So this took time, and this led to other projects. So these are the ripples that happen sometimes, right? When you try and create one thing and then it becomes another thing. So now we created the Magical Children of Light. And this is a project with children and with mothers. We teach MSc as well, nonviolent communication, and other beautiful courses that we give. So I think my time is up, if I'm not wrong, just for seeing your eyes like that, looking at me. So, because I could talk about it for ages. So I will just stop now and just send you warm hugs for now. And please be inspired to bring compassion to your everyday life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gala. Gala, would you briefly attend to Christina's question in Hebrew? How do you say compassion? At the end, we can hear all of it.
Chemla is compassion in Hebrew. Chemla.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Galia. And spreading again further across where we started one of the global engaged intensives some years ago to Vietnam with a project of CMSC where we tried to combine the teaching and also connecting to local efforts with NGOs and course participants who could then show us too what they are engaged in their society. So a beautiful mutual reciprocal learning that was intended by that course through CMSC. There I had the pleasure to get to know Ha. Ha, please, you're invited in. Happy that you're here too.
Thank you, Miriam. Hi, everyone. So I'm Ha, and I'm leading an organization in Vietnam called Authentic Live and Learn. And we have a very dreamlike vision, a happy and compassionate Vietnam. It's dreamlike because we mentioned the word happiness in Vietnam, in a country of so many wars. We've gone through so many wars. And so to be happy can be dangerous. Seems to be dangerous. How can we allow ourselves to be happy when so many bad things can happen? And I still remember the stories of my parents, that my parents told me many times, that of the years that I was born, the years of my childhood, when we struggled for food. You know, we had to line up in front of the food store at very early in the morning just to wait for the portion that we get distributed from the state. We had to fight for electricity, we had to fight for water. So these basic things were not taken for granted. They were really something, it was a struggle. It's not something to take for granted. So this was the context that my generation was raised in. And so it leaves an imprint on us, on myself, and a lot of others around me. That life is hard, and it requires fighting. We need to fight to live. We cannot be happy. So when we start this organization with a happy and compassionate Vietnam, it seems like we're floating on the sky. We're not very grounded. Happiness is floating, it's a dream. And then, so I was met with many doubts. You know, is it possible? And the doubts were especially highlighted with the COVID situation, when we were met with so many uncertainties, where we were thrown into the complete unknown. You know, all the old orders were thrown out, and we're just thrown into the complete unknown. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what next. And we were met with our biggest fears. What if all things come? What if the wars come up again? What if horrible things in the past come up again? So instead of leaning into the situation to see, hey, you know, the old ways were probably not working very well in the first place. You know, we were functioning on a very unsustainable way. A lot of people were stressed, overworked. And what if the COVID situation would bring new opportunities? You know, what if it's the death of old things and the space for new things and more promising, more opportunities, new ways of being to come up? What if that's true? So instead of leaning in to see how the situation's evolving, and it might evolve into something even better, I myself and many other people around me met with a lot of fears instead of hopes. Instead of trust in life, we were met with many fears. Just cynicism and fears and doubts and fighting. You know, the world out there seems very dark. And so this is where MSC stepped in for me and for many others around me, because with the 3 components of MSC, the first component is mindfulness, which helped me to see, what are the pains that I'm holding? Are they pains from the past? Are they still helpful? What makes me come alive? So mindfulness, actually, I know that MSC helps for me to look into my suffering, but for me, mindfulness also helps me to look into my livelihood. You know, what makes me come alive? What are my dreams? What makes me come alive? And other people around me may be saying things. They may fight, they may chase up, they may still be in the race, they may still have doubts, but what is my inner voice? What are my dreams? And what is holding me back? So the mindfulness components help me and help many others around me to look into this, to understand ourselves, to be aware of what's going on in ourselves, instead of listening to other people's voices, which may not be helpful. And the second component, self-compassion or self-kindness, helps me to, you know, in moments of doubts. And of course, I was met with so many doubts and so many fears. So in moments of doubts and fears and of cynicism, and sometimes life just seemed dark, you know, they just seem dark. What do I say to myself at those moments? Can I say, you know, I believe in you, honey. I'm here for you. I believe in you. You can do it. You've got this. I can motivate myself. I can pick myself up when I fall. I can provide for myself what I need. What do I need right now? And I can provide for myself to be able to pick myself up when I fail, which is normal, which is human. And particularly when I and many others are met with new situations, like right now, we are about to fail at some point. Yeah? When we try new things, failing is a must to move on. And to pick ourselves up when we fail and to try new things requires self-kindness, to motivate ourselves. And the third component, common humanity, is that, after all these years of teaching happiness, of teaching MSc, I still have so many fears. I still fail, and I still have my own trauma. But I remember that I'm not alone. I go through this pain to connect with all the other Vietnamese around me, and we know that we're in it together. So just this sense of connection helps me a lot. I can go through the worst, and I know that I'm not alone. So I'm deeply grateful for MSc, and I really hope that we can spread MSc in Vietnam and around the world, and I'll do my best to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ha. Yeah, Ha, and all of you who have shared now. And again, really, if there was time now and all of you who are here could share from your cultures, places, that would be very awesome. But you're here, so just want to bring that in the picture. And so many more could be here. There's a lot of potential and power and beauty in that. And you pointed to trust in life, also that, yeah, to support each other and trusting in life and the different circumstances we are in and the different privileges we are in. And we often take things so much for granted and not even aware. So here in this space, in the co-teachings, whoever of you cooperates internationally gets a sense of that, how we really need each other, and how emotional resilience that you point to, Ha, also is that's key to learn, to grow, to be open for new solutions that are needed. We need to ask new questions in these times, yeah? And that takes courage. That takes, yes, making mistakes or feeling, oh, I didn't get this right, but then to continue on. So this resilience is essential if we face crisis, not just, of course, the kind of personal trauma, but this is embedded in something bigger, and we turn towards it and support each other, be fierce in that sense, to turn towards and feel what is not easy too, and then together look into what can be solutions. But for the solutions, that needs a lot of deep listening, that needs to be trained too, I think. So with that, these questions, what unites us more in order to grow, to collaborate, instead of what divides us. This is kind of the picture we intended to paint here through pointing to global applications and experiences with mindful self-compassion practice. And we'll go a bit more concrete right now and inviting Chris for like a 10-minute practice, like one key practice. He'll say more about it. It can be applied also in brief moments to give you a taste, because it's so much about experience and then personal sharing. That's how we cooperate, in the trainings. Not so much the thinking, but really turning inwards and allowing that to be so with common humanity. Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Miriam. I was so touched also by all the sharing from our colleagues, particularly the combination of vulnerability and also courage that Miriam was also talking about. And I think this whole topic of courage and fierceness, particularly in the face of overwhelming global problems, needs a IDG meeting in and of itself. I would love to do this again and talk about the fierce and the courageous side of things in the context of vulnerability. Thank you, Lotte. So what I'd like to lead now is the self-compassion break, which is probably the most popular practice in the mindful self-compassion program for most popular practice in daily life as we go about our day. And it's based on the three components of self-compassion: mindfulness, common humanity, and self-kindness. And you can practice the whole thing in 5 minutes in your day, or you can do a little piece in 20 seconds. But right now I'm going to guide you in this practice in a kind of longer and self-reflective way. Not a lot longer, 10 minutes maybe. So if you're interested in participating, please find a comfortable position in your chair. And also, you can allow your eyes to close partially or fully. And then take a moment, please, to think of a situation in your life that is causing you stress right now. It could be a personal matter, such as a health problem, a relationship problem, a work problem. It could be a cultural problem like bias or discrimination, something you may have experienced recently. Or it could be a global problem, you know, the pain of war that we hear about in the news, or we might even be touched by in our daily lives. But please think about a problem that is in the moderate range, not severe, so that you can stick with this practice. So when you have a situation in mind, please allow yourself to drop into your experience of that situation and recall how it feels when you think about it. And notice how actually the distress feels in your body right now as you think about it. And see if you can discover where in your body you experience the stress of this situation the most. For example, maybe it's in your throat or your heart or your belly and your jaw. Where does your body sense this situation, the problem, the most? And see if you can make a little room for it. In other words, usually we'll kind of wish it weren't so. See if you can just open and allow that stress to be in your body, knowing that it's part of the human condition to feel stress. And perhaps even validating for yourself as you would for a friend. Oh, this is stressful. This hurts. This is painful. This is hard. With a kind tone, as you would with a friend, you know, oh, this is hard. This is really hard. So all of this is mindfulness, being aware what you're experiencing while you're experiencing it in a spacious way, in a validating way. This is all mindfulness. Giving yourself permission to feel. And why can we do this? Well, because what we are all experiencing right now is part of the human experience. Even though we may feel alone, maybe until this moment you felt quite alone, but just taking a moment to remember, actually, there are 200 people on this Zoom gathering who may feel very similar to you. And there are actually 8 billion people around the world, many of whom know what this is like. Or at least one other person in the world knows what this is like. You are not alone. This is how people feel in a situation like this. And suffering itself is part of the human condition. So see if you can just open to that for a moment, the recognition that you are not alone and that we share this experience together. So that's common humanity. And now the third part, self-kindness. This is very important. Let's see if we can respond to the distress in a new way. If you can give yourself some kindness, not to make the feeling go away, but just because it is so. So if you like, you can place your hand on the part of your body that is holding the most stress. The part of your body that is holding this problem, this pain. Placing a hand over that part of your body. And just feeling the sense of touch or warmth. Maybe even envisioning kindness or love flowing through your fingers into that part of your body. Because of how hard your body has been working to hold this distress, this pain. If you like, even gently rubbing that part of your body, you know, gently massaging that part of your body, as you might, say, a young child who has a tummy ache or something, just gently, as an expression of kindness. Gently rubbing that part of your body. Noticing how that feels as you do that. And then the last part of this practice, also a kindness. Consider for a moment what you would most like to hear at a time like this. So for example, if somebody were to walk into your room right now and were to whisper something into your ear that you need to hear, something that would make you say, oh, thank you, thank you. What would those words be? So seeing if you can allow those words in. If you can allow those words to roll through your mind, maybe even land someplace in your heart. So hearing these words of kindness over and over again in your own mind, savoring them as you would savor a gift, as you would savor a blessing. And now gently releasing the words, releasing the touch. Still with your eyes closed, releasing the whole practice and just allowing yourself to rest in your own experience. Noticing what you're feeling in your body. Allowing yourself to feel whatever is there. Allowing this practice to have been exactly as it was. And most importantly, if only for this one moment, allowing yourself to be in this moment just as you are. Just like this. Fully human. And then when you feel ready to slowly and gently open your eyes.
Thank you, Chris. That was
Thank you all.
wonderful. Thank you. So we will move into breakout rooms for a short sharing. And I think we will have 10 minutes. Are we on schedule of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just sharing, what is alive in you right now? Maybe it's something from the practice. Maybe it's something that you heard from the sharing from around the world. What is alive within you? And just practice really, really listening deeply to each other and also being mindful of the time so that all of you get to share. So enjoy. If you're ready, Johan. Oh, okay. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So Johan is arranging the breakout rooms.
Yeah, and just to mention that after the breakout rooms, we'll be gathering back again, and the session will close at 5, but then we continue with another half of what we call the afterglow, which is usually a moment to that's when we also get an extra opportunity to talk to each other. We get to also discover who else is in the call and to explore where people are from in the world and what inner development goal hubs may be active and how you can start and getting involved in different activities in the movement. So please hang on afterwards as well. But now, just soon, we'll be splitting you into the rooms so that you'll get to share and yeah, just feel into what is alive in you at this point.
Okay.
Ready.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
See you soon. And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the main room. I respect that in my experience, it's always too short the time that we get in the breakout rooms to share with one another. And for that reason in particular, we also do encourage you to stay after in our afterglow after we end the session. And so there's still opportunity for us to meet and to share and to encourage and empower each other. Yeah.
Yes.
Check out the chat.
Yes. So we're about to wrap up, right?
Yeah.
And how should we do that?
Well, I will consult my cheat sheet.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
If
So-
you, yeah.
Yes, while you're doing it, may I just talk about the next gathering? Where you're looking?
Please,
Go
yes,
ahead.
Fatima, our
So
colleague.
I just take the opportunity to invite you for our next gathering, even though this one is not ended yet, in case you need to leave at 5. And we have the theme of forgiveness, which might be the 24th upcoming IDG. It's not decided, but it's a lot of discussion about that. And we have a beautiful panel from Colombia, from Rwanda, and from the United States, who are going to discuss these different aspects of forgiveness. And I share the link here, and you will find it on our homepage as well soon. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you, Fatima. And the date for that is the 16th of February.
16th of February, yes.
So checking out.
Yes.
So please share in the chat.
Mhm.
What would you like to remember from this gathering?
Hmm.
So just sharing, what would you like to remember from this gathering? And we always share or save the chat. And usually it's really, really beautiful.
Mhm.
Can we speak? Or we have to share in the chat?
In the chat, well, if you want
Okay.
to say something, someone, I guess we could. Be welcome. Just share something, and the rest of you just go ahead and share in the chat. What
Mhm.
would you like to remember? Welcome.
Would you like to share, Munira?
Yes, I was just thinking, suffering. We were thinking of suffering. If you transform the suffering, I'm from Kenya. Okay. And Chris was talking about transforming suffering, and it can be done if we positively reframe suffering. Yeah, like crisis can be reframed. It's an opportunity for growth. Yeah. And because you learn more from 9 days of agony than 9 years of contentment. So it's how you reframe things that really transforms you. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so much is being shared in the chat, and I really encourage the way we also listen to Munira sharing to just take in what's being shared in the chat.
So Miriam, we're just inviting you in to share a few words as we wrap up, and also inviting you and all the other guests to stay on, like we said, and we will have this joint conversation that we had planned to for in the session, but didn't have time to. So if you want to say a few words.
I think I would like to name another skill, like forgiveness. It had been mentioned right now, gratitude, gratefulness. And I want to play that back right to you, Lotta, because just by coincidences in life, which are not coincidences, and then a lot of sparks come out of something, and that's why we are all here. I want to thank you for that brightness and cooperation and joy, proactivity, seeing far with all of your teams in the back, so seen and unseen. That really goes to you, and that goes to all of you are here who could share in the chat or not, but really by being here, and we've seen many of you. I just want to let you know that's very powerful and encouraging. Brings a lot of joy to me, and I hope joy for you too. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I really, it was mentioned before, just the appreciation for the diversity, and also for all of us joining from around the globe. And we are building this movement together, which is actually, I think someone mentioned the word mosaic, I think, which it is really a mosaic of movements. And this is a beautiful, this gathering has been and is a beautiful example of how one sort of practitioner network, if you will, with the mindful self-compassion movement is joining up and connecting up with this inner development goal network or spider's web, you know. We're real strands and little nodes that are connecting with each other into this common humanity, perhaps, that we have been practicing today. And so this is also, I just wanted to mention for those of you who may be new in the context, that we do have a global summit called Connecting the Dots, actually, coming up in October. So the 11th to the 13th of October, and there's a link to that as well. That's an encouragement to join either here in Stockholm, a beautiful gathering, or also a beautiful gathering globally online. So that is happening on the sort of medium long term this year. And before that, we also, of course, have this heartbeat of the Inner Development Goals movement or process that is the monthly gatherings that Fatima mentioned. The next one, we have upcoming ones each month, and so please get involved in that and keep coming to these gatherings. And we also have a founding partner organization called 29K that is actually incorporating or including the mindful self-compassion work or tools in the mobile application that they are working on continuously, which has the goal of reaching the really broad audience of everybody, everybody with a mobile device, at least, with these daily, simple, no barrier to entry tools of incorporating mindfulness or tools that can help us increase our mental health, our well-being, and our ability to act in the wellness of the planet as well.
Perfect. And there's also hubs all around the world. So if you want to engage, look at our website and you will find which hubs are available and connect with the contact person there. And as a result, actually, of this gathering, us who have been engaged, we decided that we wanted to form a hub focusing on compassion. So as of from today, there's actually a new hub. So maybe, Miriam, you would like to share your email address in the chat for anyone who would like to connect and be part of that, to explore compassion and, of course, self-compassion and what that can do in the context of inner development goals. So most welcome.
And I know also that for the afterglow, there is someone, and I encourage you to maybe raise your hand, of who from the IDG hubs and networks coordinators will be hosting the breakout room for hubs and networks in the afterglow. Who may that be in this call? Is that, do I see Rafaela? Rafaela, you'll be hosting hosting that conversation in that breakout room. we want to again just thank you so warmly for joining and co-creating this gathering. Thank you to the mindful self-compassion and the movement, and to all of you who participated today. And as a tradition, you can just do gallery view and unmute your own microphone and just say thank you and goodbye in your language.
Hej då! Tack!
Tack.
Tack så mycket!
Gracias. Chao.
Adios.
Adi, thank you.
Thank you.
Asante sana. Siku mwema.
Asante.